What if I told you Hollywood isn't just a dream factory, it's also got a permanent blacklist, and the names on it are legendary? We're not talking about flops or bad agents. These are stars who broke the rules, crashed the party, or set fire to their own careers so spectacularly that Tinseltown slammed the door for good. Ever wonder who's truly unwelcome behind the velvet rope? Stick around. Some of these stories are wilder than any blockbuster script. Charlie Sheen. At one time, Charlie Sheen was Hollywood's crown prince of sitcoms. He had everything: a hit show, a fat paycheck, and a public persona that blended bad boy and comedic genius. Then, just like a tabloid headline in human form, it all exploded. Sheen's off-screen antics weren't just about late nights and wild parties. The chaos was relentless: public meltdowns, interviews filled with talk of tiger blood and winning, and a feud with the creator of Two and a Half Men that went nuclear on live TV. Viewers were riveted, but producers weren't laughing. When Sheen torched his bridges with the show's creators, the studio fired him in a blaze of very public drama. But the story didn't end there. Legal trouble, bizarre media appearances, and a trail of broken professional relationships made Sheen untouchable for major studios. Even a comeback show, Anger Management, fizzled out as fast as it arrived. The tabloids kept rolling, but the offers stopped. In Hollywood, bad behavior is sometimes forgiven, unless you make it impossible for anyone to work with you. Charlie Sheen went from the highest-paid actor on TV to a living cautionary tale. Hollywood closed its doors, and he's still pounding on them from the outside, a star who burned too hot for even Tinseltown to handle. Bill Cosby. He was once America's dad, the face of family values on TV, and the reason millions tuned in for feel-good sitcom nights. Then the entire facade shattered, and Bill Cosby's name became the industry's ultimate red flag. For decades, Cosby was untouchable, lauded for his humor, beloved for The Cosby Show, and decorated with every award under the sun. But when decades of allegations surfaced, the world stopped laughing. Major networks pulled his reruns overnight, sponsors bailed, and even his honorary degrees evaporated in a flash. The courtroom drama that followed was national news, and by the time the verdicts rolled in, Cosby wasn't just out of work. He was radioactive. Hollywood, which loves a redemption arc, offered none. The entertainment industry didn't just distance itself, it slammed the door and nailed it shut. The legacy of America's dad is now a cautionary footnote, a masterclass in how fast adoration can curdle into infamy. Bill Cosby went from superstar to outcast with the world watching. And if there's one thing Hollywood hates, it's bad press that never stops. The red carpet isn't rolling out for Cosby ever again. O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson's Hollywood career was a masterclass in reinvention: football icon, movie star, and a household name. Then, the trial of the century rewrote his entire story in front of a global audience. Before 1994, O.J. was everywhere, starring in comedies, sports commentary, and big-budget films. After the infamous trial for the deaths of his ex-wife and her friend, even an acquittal couldn't clean the slate. The industry and the public turned cold. Movie roles evaporated. TV producers who once called him a legend now crossed his name off every list. Even his sports legacy was erased. No more endorsements, no more sideline commentary, and certainly no more sitcom cameos. Then came a string of bizarre incidents, culminating in a prison sentence for robbery years later. In Tinseltown, forgiveness is doled out for almost anything except making the entire world question your innocence. Hollywood moved on without O.J. fast. His story became a warning. Stardom is one scandal away from extinction, and when your reputation is toxic enough, even the most powerful contacts can't save you. Roseanne Barr. Roseanne Barr was the queen of working-class comedy. Her sitcom was a pop culture touchstone, making audiences laugh with its honesty and edge. So when her TV comeback was announced decades later, the hype was real. But Roseanne's mouth was always her wild card. Just as her reboot was hitting its stride, she tweeted a comment that detonated social media. The backlash was immediate and ferocious. Fans, critics, and even her own network turned on her. Within hours, her hit show was yanked off the air, her character was written out, and her co-stars kept the train moving without her. Hollywood can tolerate a lot of edgy, but Barr's tweet crossed a line that even her reputation for shock comedy couldn't survive. Explanations didn't matter, apologies didn't help. In the time it takes to send a tweet, she went from beloved to blacklisted. These days, Roseanne's name is synonymous with what happens when you torch your own comeback. The doors that opened for her once, double-locked, and Hollywood's not making copies of the keys. Michael Richards, immortalized as Kramer on Seinfeld, should have had it made. His slapstick genius and wild-eyed antics turned him into a sitcom legend. But one disastrous night on a comedy club stage changed everything. When heckled by audience members, Richards snapped, delivering a tirade that was caught on camera and exploded online. In an era where every scandal is just a click away, the footage went viral, and Richards' career imploded almost overnight. Apologies followed, but the damage was permanent. Casting directors stopped calling. Networks erased his guest appearances. He tried to make amends on talk shows, but the audience had already moved on. The lesson? In Hollywood, one bad night can torch decades of goodwill. Richards never managed a true comeback. His name became shorthand for the fastest fall from sitcom royalty to persona non grata. If there's a map of canceled careers, Michael Richards is circled in red ink. A reminder that for all of Tinseltown's forgiveness, some mistakes are just too big for a second act. Mel Gibson was once a Hollywood golden boy. Mad Max, Lethal Weapon, Braveheart, you name it. He was the star. He could direct, act, and charm his way through any role. Then came the headlines nobody could ignore. Gibson's public image took a nosedive after a series of outbursts that were impossible to spin. An infamous DUI arrest, caught on police camera, featured him spouting off in ways that made the entire industry wince. Suddenly, this leading man wasn't just controversial, he was untouchable. Studios pulled the plug on projects, actors who once called him friend stepped back, and Hollywood seemed to collectively decide Gibson's baggage was too heavy to carry. Even when he attempted a comeback, the shadow of his past clung to every interview and every deal. Hacksaw Ridge won Oscars, but you could feel the hesitation in the air every time his name was mentioned at an awards show. In Hollywood, your reputation is your currency, and Gibson's stock plummeted fast. The industry loves a wild child, but only when they know how to play nice. Mel Gibson's Hollywood chapter is a cautionary tale. Cross the line too many times, and the big machine that made you a star can and will spit you out for good. Katherine Heigl rocketed to fame on Grey's Anatomy and looked like the next queen of rom-coms. Studios were ready to crown her, and audiences couldn't get enough. Then, out of nowhere, Heigl's rep went from America's sweetheart to Hollywood's hardest sell. What happened? It started with a few pointed comments, publicly dismissing the writing on Grey's Anatomy and taking shots at Judd Apatow's Knocked Up, the very film that put her on the A-list. She called out scripts, questioned directors, and, just like that, got labeled difficult. In Hollywood, that's the kiss of death. It didn't matter if she had a point. The power players behind the scenes decided she was more trouble than she was worth. The phone stopped ringing, and the blockbuster offers dried up. Heigl tried to pivot to indie films and TV, but the buzz had faded. She went from box office gold to a cautionary warning: never bite the hand that feeds you, especially when that hand runs the studio. Her fall wasn't about talent. It was about timing, tact, and the politics of the spotlight. Katherine Heigl's story is a Hollywood classic. You can lose everything, and all it takes is a few honest words said to the wrong people. Thora Burch. Remember Thora Burch? She was everywhere for a moment. American Beauty, Ghost World, and that one-of-a-kind intensity that made casting directors swoon. Then, as if someone flipped a switch, she vanished from the big screen. The reason? A career meltdown that's all about what goes on behind the scenes. Burch's troubles started when her father, who was also her manager, got a little too involved on set. Stories spread of him intimidating cast and crew, making demands that rattled directors, and pushing his daughter's career off the rails. By the time the press got wind, the damage was done. Projects pulled out, casting offers dried up, and Thora's star dimmed almost overnight. Hollywood has a long memory when it comes to difficult reputations, especially when they're fueled by family drama. It didn't matter that Burch was talented or that she tried to stage a comeback. The label stuck, and her name quietly disappeared from the mainstream. Her story is a Hollywood warning shot. Even the most promising actors can lose everything if the people around them push too far, too fast, and too loud. Lindsay Lohan. Few actors have seen a meteoric rise and fall quite like Lindsay Lohan. From Disney darling in The Parent Trap to the face of Mean Girls, she seemed unstoppable. But as quickly as she shot to stardom, Lohan's world spun out. The tabloids had a field day, party photos, wild nights, court appearances, and more stints in rehab than movie premieres. For a while, she was more headline than actress, and Hollywood doesn't wait for anyone to get it together. Directors started to hesitate. Studios couldn't risk their budgets on a star who might not show up, or worse, show up in no condition to work. Her once bright career became a series of stalled projects and second chances that fizzled out. The Lohan brand was officially toxic. When the studios moved on, the message was clear. Even if you've got all the talent in the world, no one is immune to the fallout of bad press and missed opportunities. Lindsay Lohan's story isn't just about one actress. It's about Hollywood's brutal speed and how fast it can turn its back when you go from it girl to cautionary tale. Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf was Hollywood's next great risk-taker, a child star who broke through the noise with blockbusters and indie hits alike. He was unpredictable, wild, and undeniably talented. Then the cracks started to show. A string of bizarre incidents, plagiarism accusations, public breakdowns, and unpredictable on-set behavior had everyone whispering about Shia for all the wrong reasons. Arrests followed, and his reputation for volatility made studios nervous. Things reached a boiling point when co-stars and directors began speaking out, describing an actor who was, frankly, too much trouble to keep around. The most devastating blow came when serious allegations about his personal conduct hit the headlines, making him radioactive in the eyes of Hollywood power brokers. Once the hottest ticket in town, LaBeouf found himself sidelined, projects pulled, and offers drying up. In an industry that thrives on buzz, Shia's chaos became his undoing. Hollywood might love a bad boy, but only if they can keep the cameras rolling. For Shia LaBeouf, the curtain fell early, with the promise of greatness replaced by a legacy of burned bridges. Megan Fox. You'd think landing a leading role in a billion-dollar franchise would mean you're set for life. But Megan Fox's Hollywood journey is a lesson in how fast you can go from it girl to persona non grata. When Fox exploded onto the scene in Transformers, she became an instant icon, with magazine covers, blockbuster roles, and the kind of buzz most actors only dream about. Then, just as quickly, things soured. In a now infamous interview, Fox compared her director Michael Bay to a dictator. The result? She was abruptly dropped from Transformers 3, and Hollywood doors began slamming shut one by one. Producers and directors didn't want to work with someone labeled difficult, especially a young star who spoke out of turn. Her career didn't completely die, but the A-list momentum disappeared in a flash. Megan Fox's story is a Hollywood classic. Speak your mind, and the industry might make an example out of you. She's since clawed her way back through indie films and social media, but that first taste of Blacklist was the stuff of legend. In Tinseltown, timing is everything, and sometimes one interview can change your fate forever. Isaiah Washington. Isaiah Washington was at the top of his game on Grey's Anatomy, a star among stars. But his career took a nosedive after one on-set incident that changed everything. During a heated argument, Washington allegedly used an offensive slur, and the story exploded across the industry. Producers quickly realized this was more than just workplace drama. It was a full-blown scandal. Washington issued apologies, went on TV to explain himself, and even took part in public service announcements. But the damage was already done. Shonda Rhimes, the show's creator, made the call. Washington was out, and his role was written off with little fanfare. Hollywood is unforgiving when controversy overshadows talent. Even though Washington tried to stage a comeback with roles in indie films and TV guest spots, he was never able to shake the shadow of Grey's Anatomy. The lesson here? One bad moment, one wrong word, can cost you everything in the blink of an eye. For Isaiah Washington, Hollywood's memory proved just as sharp as its appetite for fresh faces. Vanessa Marquez. Vanessa Marquez wasn't a household name, But her story is a raw look at Hollywood's dark side. Marquez starred on the long-running medical drama ER, where she was known for her talent and intensity. But behind the scenes, things weren't as glamorous. Marquez later accused prominent actors and producers of harassment on set, including big names like George Clooney. She claimed that after speaking out, she was blackballed, fired from ER, and unable to land roles. Whether you believe her claims or not, the results speak for themselves. Marquez's career came to an abrupt halt, and Hollywood moved on without her. She struggled for years with health issues and personal setbacks, fighting to have her story heard. Tragically, Marquez's life ended in controversy after a confrontation with police. Her legacy, a painful reminder of how speaking up in Hollywood can come with a heavy cost. Marquez's story isn't just about one actress. It's about the price of challenging power and how quickly the industry can erase even its most talented when they rock the boat. Sha Young. Sha Young had the looks, the talent, and the kind of screen presence that makes you think superstar. She dazzled in Blade Runner and stole scenes in 80s cult favorites. But Hollywood has always been a shark tank, and Young made waves that turned into tsunamis. Determined to land the role of Catwoman in Batman Returns, Young took a page out of performance art, showing up at the studio in full costume, uninvited. Instead of landing the part, she gained a reputation for being unpredictable. The situation escalated when she was accused of harassing co-star James Woods, leading to a lawsuit and even more negative press. Studios labeled her difficult and risky to cast. One by one, the big offers disappeared, and Young found herself doing indie films and reality TV instead of headlining blockbusters. In Tinseltown, there's a thin line between bold and reckless. For Sha Young, every misstep made that line blurrier. Her story is a Hollywood warning shot. If you push too hard or play by your own rules, the industry will lock the gates and throw away the key. Tippi Hedren. Tippi Hedren's story could be a movie on its own. Plucked from obscurity by Alfred Hitchcock, she starred in The Birds and MoNique, becoming a cinematic icon overnight. But behind the scenes, Hitchcock's obsession turned toxic. When Hedren refused his advances and stood her ground, he reportedly retaliated in the harshest way possible, sabotaging her career and keeping her locked in a studio contract without work. Hedren was frozen out, her star power wasting away as Hollywood moved on to its next muse. Despite her talent and unforgettable performances, she struggled to break free from Hitchcock's shadow. The offers dried up, and her days as a leading lady were over almost as soon as they began. Hedren later rebuilt her life as an animal rights activist and mentor, but the message was clear: stand up to the wrong person in power, and you could be finished. Her legacy is a bittersweet mix of triumph and tragedy, a Hollywood legend, but also a stark reminder of how cruel the business can be to those who say no. Fatty Arbuckle. Fatty Arbuckle was once Hollywood's king of slapstick, a true comedy pioneer in the silent film era. He was so big, studios built movies around him and audiences couldn't get enough. But in 1921, everything came crashing down after a sensational court case that became front-page news nationwide. Arbuckle was accused of a crime he was ultimately acquitted of, but the damage was permanent. Even after 3 trials ended with a not guilty verdict, the headlines had already done their work. The newly minted Hollywood Moral Code decided to make an example out of Arbuckle, banning him from screens everywhere. Studios dumped his films, and his name became radioactive. For years, he couldn't find work under his own name. He had to direct under pseudonyms just to pay the bills. Hollywood was so intent on protecting its image that it erased one of its first true stars. Arbuckle's story is a gut-punch lesson in how fast Tinseltown can turn on its own. In a place obsessed with reinvention, Arbuckle became the blueprint for being blacklisted, not because of guilt, but because the studio bosses couldn't risk another scandal. The Fatty Arbuckle story is Hollywood's original cautionary tale. One bad headline, and you're out forever. MoNique. Winning an Oscar is supposed to open doors, not close them. But for MoNique, her big win for Precious ended up being the start of a career freeze-out. She gave a powerhouse performance, earned critical raves, and then did something that set her apart. She spoke her mind. When MoNique refused to campaign for her Oscar in the way studios expected and later called out director Lee Daniels, Oprah Winfrey, and Tyler Perry for what she saw as industry hypocrisy, she found herself suddenly persona non grata. Major roles stopped coming in, red carpet invites dried up, and the industry quietly shut her out. MoNique never went quietly, calling out Hollywood's double standards in every interview. The more she pushed back, the harder the blacklist stuck. The whole saga turned her into both a firebrand and a warning for anyone who dares to challenge the system. MoNique's story isn't about scandal or self-destruction. It's about what happens when you don't play by Hollywood's unspoken rules. She broke the silence, and Hollywood broke up with her. Now every comeback is an uphill battle, and every headline is a reminder that Tinseltown never forgets. Kathy Griffin? Kathy Griffin made a career out of crossing the line and laughing about it. Her comedy was sharp, fearless, and never afraid to punch up. She roasted celebrities, tore down taboos, and racked up Emmys. But in 2017, Griffin's career hit the kind of wall you don't bounce back from. After posting a controversial photo on social media that sparked national outrage, networks canceled her gigs overnight. Sponsors jumped ship. Even friends in the business distanced themselves. Griffin found herself blacklisted from talk shows, dropped from CNN's New Year's Eve special, and locked out of most major stages. She fought back, doubling down in interviews and on social media, but the backlash was relentless. The industry that once celebrated her edge now wanted nothing to do with her. Griffin's story isn't just about one moment. It's about how quickly comedy can turn from asset to liability. Hollywood loves rebels, but it loves a squeaky clean image even more. For Kathy Griffin, the price of pushing too far was a career that vanished in an instant, and a legacy defined as much by her banishment as by her punchlines. Cee Lo Green. Cee Lo Green was everywhere. Pop charts, talent shows, and even sitcom guest spots. His unique voice and over-the-top style made him a fan favorite. But then the headlines started rolling in, and everything changed. Green faced serious allegations and a media storm after an incident that became public knowledge. Even though he avoided jail, the fallout was swift and brutal. TV shows dropped him, music gigs disappeared, and his once bright acting prospects went dark. Green's attempts to defend himself on social media only made things worse, with controversial comments adding fuel to the fire. The industry, always cautious about public perception, quickly pulled the plug. The message was clear. If your name brings controversy, Hollywood will find the next act and move on. Green's story is a cautionary riff. No matter how high you climb, you can drop out of sight in record time if you make yourself a liability. Hollywood isn't interested in apologies, it's interested in clean slates, and Green's slate was anything but. The man who once stood out for his talent now stands out as a reminder of how quickly it can all vanish. Vanessa Williams. Vanessa Williams had it all. Beauty, talent, and the honor of being the first Black Miss America. She looked set to be America's sweetheart, and Hollywood rolled out the red carpet. Then, out of nowhere, a scandal erupted over leaked photos from her past. Williams was pressured to resign her crown, and the entertainment industry turned its back. Roles dried up, and her chance at superstardom seemed over before it began. But Williams refused to stay down. She reinvented herself as a singer and, years later, as a TV and Broadway star, clawing her way back with pure talent and grit. Still, those early years were brutal. No one would touch her for fear of being tainted by scandal. In a town obsessed with image, Williams became a symbol of both how cruel the system can be and how hard it is to stage a comeback when you've been labeled damaged goods. Her story is both cautionary and inspiring, a tale of blacklisting, resilience, and the high cost of one bad headline in the world's most unforgiving industry. Robert Blake. Robert Blake's story is straight out of a Hollywood noir. Child star turned TV legend, only to become the center of one of the industry's most shocking scandals. Blake found fame early, but his real breakthrough was playing the gritty detective in Beretta. For decades, he was a familiar face on the small screen. Then, in 2001, his wife was found dead outside a Los Angeles restaurant, and Blake was charged with her murder. The trial was pure tabloid gold, with twists and turns that gripped the nation. Although he was acquitted in criminal court, the public opinion was far less forgiving. Hollywood, never a fan of endless bad press, slammed the door on Blake and lost his number for good. He made a few attempts at a comeback, but every project was drowned out by the echoes of his infamous trial. Producers, networks, and even former friends wanted nothing to do with the drama. In an industry where image is everything, Blake's was too tarnished to salvage. His career was over, not by a final act, but by a slow fade to black, the kind you never see in a script, but always feel in real life. Jim Caviezel. Jim Caviezel was once pegged as Hollywood's next leading man, with his piercing stare and quietly intense performances. Then came his biggest role, playing the lead in The Passion of the Christ. The film was a box office smash, but it carried so much controversy that Caviezel's career was never the same. Industry insiders whispered that he'd become too associated with a single role, but the reality was harsher. Studios quietly shut him out, and the juicy roles dried up. Directors who once courted him suddenly stopped calling. Caviezel spoke out about feeling blacklisted for his personal beliefs and for his willingness to take on divisive projects. Whether it was his outspoken nature or the film's explosive legacy, Hollywood wasn't taking chances on him anymore. He kept working, mostly in independent films and faith-driven projects, but the big-budget studio offers were gone. Caviezel's story is about the unwritten rules of Tinseltown. Step too far outside the industry's comfort zone, and you might find yourself on the wrong side of the velvet rope for good. James Woods. James Woods built his career on playing sharp-tongued, edgy characters. His acting was electric, his reputation complicated, but Woods' off-screen persona became just as infamous as any role. Outspoken on social media, he never shied away from controversy or from voicing strong, unpopular opinions. Eventually, his comments caught up to him. Producers and studios, wary of being swept up in online outrage, began dropping Woods from projects, sometimes with little warning or explanation. Even agents distanced themselves, and the industry that once respected his fearless attitude now saw him as a risk too great to take. Woods himself joked that he'd been blacklisted for speaking his mind, but the silence from Hollywood was louder than any punchline. For all his talent and bravado, Woods learned the hard way that in the age of social media, your tweets can matter as much as your scripts. His career is proof. In modern Hollywood, one unfiltered comment can cost you every future call. Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey was one of Hollywood's most respected actors. 2 Oscars, a stack of hit films, and a leading role on the acclaimed series House of Cards. His range was legendary, and his reputation was as solid as they come. But in 2017, a wave of allegations brought his entire career crashing down. Spacy was fired from House of Cards, replaced in big-budget films, and erased from marketing material almost overnight. The industry that once celebrated him went silent, and the projects dried up faster than anyone thought possible. Even after being cleared of some criminal charges, Hollywood kept its distance. Directors, producers, and former collaborators closed ranks, making it clear Spacy was no longer welcome in the inner circle. Attempts at comebacks were met with icy silence. In a business that thrives on reputation, Spacey's downfall became a textbook example of how fast you can go from untouchable to untouchable, for all the wrong reasons. The door slammed, and so far, there's no sign it'll open again. Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin isn't just a legend, he's the face of early Hollywood. His little tramp character charmed audiences all over the world and made millions laugh. But even the industry's most beloved icon couldn't escape the blacklist. During the paranoia of the Cold War, Chaplin's political views and refusal to play ball with the House Un-American Activities Committee landed him in hot water. When he left the country to premiere his film Limelight in London, the U.S. government revoked his re-entry permit. Hollywood didn't just blacklist Chaplin from movies, they banned him from the entire country. For decades, he remained in exile, watching from afar as Hollywood changed without him. The message was loud and clear. It doesn't matter how high you've climbed, no one is above the industry's politics. Chaplin's story is the ultimate reminder that Hollywood can and will erase even its greatest stars if they stray too far from the script. So, what's the real Hollywood story? Talent gets you in, but one wrong move can slam the door forever. Fame's a wild ride, but it's got no seatbelt, and Tinseltown is always looking for a new face to replace yesterday's headline. Who shocked you the most? Did anyone on this list deserve a second chance? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit subscribe for more untold stories, and remember, no star shines forever when Hollywood decides the curtain's closed.